David Hildebrand, that's who we're here with today. Thank you so much for being with me. I am Amanda Cumming. I'm with the Independent Progressive, and our goal is to make sure that we have access and availability to our elected officials and those running for office. So thank you for being with me today. That being said, I'm going to go ahead and just run right into this. First off, I want to get to know a little bit more about you. So if you can just tell me how you got started and what kind of made you decide to go ahead and run for office.
Well, I want to head this off by letting you guys know that I just got back from the dentist, so I'm a little numb. So you'll picture me, or you'll see me basically slurring a little bit in the side of my face, a little saggy or whatever. So just a warning ahead of time. I worked for the Bernie campaign. That's what kicked a lot of people off. For politics, I think that's what woke a lot of people up. I worked as a staging location director, which is a canvas captain for a whole congressional district. So I sent people out to the whole congressional district. Before that, I actually was a canvas captain for my neighborhood. We pushed our whole neighborhood to go Bernie when the surrounding neighborhoods around me, the surrounding precincts went for Hillary. So we actually did that as well. For running, I worked on a few campaigns besides the Bernie campaign, and I was kind of holding back and waiting for someone to take the spot to run against Feinstein. I didn't really see anyone doing that at the time, so I decided to go ahead and throw my hat in the ring, and I'm basically running as a working class alternative to Feinstein or whatever other corporate politician might come into the race.
Okay, so when you describe kind of Feinstein being more of a corporate candidate, could you kind of maybe help distinguish our viewers a little bit better on that?
So basically, I think the best example that has come of late is the Singlepayer issue. Basically, she came out 2 weeks after she held a fundraiser for healthcare corporations and insurance companies. She came out and said that Singlepayer was a government takeover of all medicine. So basically, she knows already that it's not government medicine. It's not government-run medicine. It's government paid for medicine. Basically, you pay through taxes to get your health care. The health care is still provided by private companies. So she takes basically funds from corporations, and then she develops her views based on that funding. So if you're going to take donations from a certain area, and then you're going to go vote on something. Generally, if you're a corporate candidate, your vote's going to be based on who you took corporate donations from. So, like, she votes for a lot of military stuff, a lot of weapons sales, and among her top 10 donors are 3 military companies that build drones, among other things.
So when somebody actually comes and tells you, well, this is the system that we live in, how else are we going to fundraise? We have to take money. What is your response to that? And does that put you at a disadvantage when you decide not to take that money? Like, how does that work out in this system that we currently have?
So if you would have asked that question 8 years ago, I would have told you, yes, it's impossible to run a campaign without corporate donations. But we just watched Bernie Sanders go from relatively not known on the national level to almost winning the Democratic primary. And he did that all based on independent contributions and contributions from unions and other people or other organizations that represent the people. So I actually do think there is a chance to run a public campaign and publicly funded campaign and win. Basically, we're right now collecting donations only from individuals. We're not even collecting PAC money, and that's not even super PAC. We're never going to collect super PAC money. We're only collecting donations from individuals at this point. With just those donations from individuals, we've raised a few $1,000s so far, which isn't a lot in the scheme of things, but that few $1,000s has allowed us to print flyers, bumper stickers, and donation envelopes. And we actually have people as far north as Siskiyou County, all the way up to Weed, which most people have never heard of, but it's almost to the Oregon border. And we also have people all the way down in San Diego and everywhere in between. We have people in the Bay Area handing out these flyers and talking to people. So now I'm meeting people at these different events when I go to LA or the Bay Area that already know who I am. And this is like with like no money at all, basically. So I think what really needs to happen for independent campaigns like this is stop focusing on money and fundraising as much. Obviously, we need money to get stuff done, but I think it's more of a voter initiative that we need to get the name out of the campaign for, in my case, my name out, but for other campaigns as well, we need to get the name out for progressive candidates. Once we do that, then the rest kind of flows into it. So another issue is right now we have like basically a populist election cycle that I believe is still going on. A lot of people are upset and they're finding out more and more about the people that they've elected in the past and voted for in the past and what they actually stand for. In the past, people, I don't believe, were really paying as much attention. And now, I mean, that's including myself. I'm guilty of that as well. But they weren't paying as much attention in the past. And now that they are paying attention, they're realizing that the people that they thought were like liberal superheroes actually have voted for things that they didn't think they did. And they're shocked to find that out. When I talk to people about Feinstein and mention that she voted for the Iraq War, they're thrown back by that. They didn't realize that that was the case. When I tell them she voted for the Patriot Act, which was like a Bush era bill that took away our rights, they are shocked that she did that. They didn't realize that she did that. So I think it's more, one, it's the message over the money. And obviously we need money to get the message out, but the message is more important. Name recognition is more important than the actual cash we have coming in. And second, I believe that we can win over a lot of people in the working class and lower class people who have seen the same thing happen again and again, a corporate candidate collecting huge donations from corporations and then turning their back on them once they get into office.
So there's been, I guess, some idea that President Trump himself was a populist candidate, but then you can see by some things that he's trying to get implemented or something that he has actually retracted from previous administrations, you see that his actual actions do not match what he ran on. What is your response if somebody asks you, well, you're telling me you're a populist, however, Trump told me the same thing. How are you going to ensure that your actions do match what you run upon?
Well, Trump was a Pied Piper, and we knew that from the beginning. So basically, he sent out a message that would entice a certain member or certain members of the population to vote for him. And again, we were in an anti-establishment election cycle. So I'm not one of the people that's out there saying everyone who voted for Trump is a racist. That's not what I believe. I believe that people wanted an anti-establishment candidate, and the Democratic Party did not offer them that. So when it got down to the general election, they sat there at the ballot and wondered who they'd vote for, more of the same or something different. I think that I knew all along that Trump wasn't going to fulfill anything he said. And I think that he's going to get taken down by his own people at the end of the day, because he hasn't followed through with the things that we don't like, but the things that they did like, and that's what they voted for him for. So in a populist election cycle, we need to have those people out there that are actually going to fight for the people. For me, I mean, I work a day job. I've been on unemployment. I've been on disability. I've experienced these situations. I've experienced extreme poverty. I already know how these things are, and it's going to be really hard to take that away from my consciousness. Whereas someone like Trump, he never had that experience. The guy hasn't worked a day in his life. He's surrounded by advisors, and he's spending daddy's money that he inherited on everything.
So what do you say when people say, like, well, maybe the country's too divided? So you may have proposed some great ideas that everybody can get behind, that both the working class, both working class whites and minorities can totally back. But then how do you plan on getting maybe independents? Do you think that you have a message for them? Because I guess I'm sure you probably keep up with the numbers that now independents are a huge voting bloc, if not 1/3 of the voting population.
So independents in California are no party preference voters, as we call them here. Basically, they are getting close to 1/3. They're not the biggest party, but they're getting close to it. But they are the fastest growing party. So I will tell you that a lot of independents voted for Bernie in the primary. They switched over to Democrat. I actually talked to quite a few when I was knocking doors before I actually took a higher level volunteer position within the campaign. And a lot of people that were independent actually switched and to Democrat to make sure that they could vote for Bernie. I actually talked some Green Party members into switching to Democrat to vote for Bernie. So the message resonated with that group of people as well. So, I mean, my platform's very similar to Bernie. I'm more left than him on some issues like war. I believe I'm more left. Palestine and Israel, more left than him. But at the same time, he won the whole north end of the state in the Democratic primary, which is a poor, like red state area, basically. All the whole northern end of the state votes Republican, and he won all those in the Democratic primary. Now your counter might be, well, that's the Democratic primary, so of course he won because those were only Democrats voting. But if you go and look over in like El Dorado County and the wealthier red counties, they did not vote for Bernie. So there's a resonance there among working class people that they want something different, but they don't want to vote for Trump and burn everything down. They want actual, reform to the current system. Something big needs to happen to where it actually represents them and takes care of their needs. And I think me and including them, we don't have that right now in office for California, at least. We have Bernie, but we don't have a lot of other people that really represent the working class.
So do you think that if you were elected, that would be considered draining the swamp at all?
I wouldn't go that far. I think one person in the swamp that's doing good, that's one thing, but I think there's a lot more people we need to do, or we need to vote out and replace. But there are several people across the state, at least, and across the country that I've talked to that are currently primarying other Democrats who are more corporate Democrats. So we have like a movement going that might take a while, but my goal isn't tomorrow. My goal is 8 years down the road. Because if the Democrats take back over and they're still all corporate Democrats, they can promise you the world right now. They can promise you single payer. They can promise you, raising the minimum wage. They can promise you pie in the sky, as they call it. And then as soon as they get back in control, they don't have to pass anything.
So let's talk about single payer for a bit. Speaking of, yesterday, Bernie Sanders did introduce his single payer or Medicare for all option. Did you have a chance to read over that?
I have not. I actually work full time as a legislative analyst, so I was doing transportation stuff today.
Okay, that's
But if I could finish off my other comment, basically what I was saying is my goal is to have progressives in office when the Democrats take back over. As if you have actual progressives who are going to vote for these issues, then you have actual power in play for progressives. If it's the same corporate Democrats, you won't have that.
Okay. So my thought on single payer, where do you stand on that, and how can you kind of get people to either back it or not back it?
So, well, obviously I am for single payer. I've actually promoted single payer for 10 years. I promoted it since I was in junior college. I've debated for single payer way back at that point. I was ecstatic when Bernie Sanders came out talking about single payer. That's one of the main reasons I started working for his campaign. So when SB 562 came around, I jumped on that campaign as well, and I helped out with canvassing for that and talking to people about that. So basically, single payer is my personal core issue. I wouldn't call it the most important issue that I have on my platform, but it's a personal thing for me. Now, how do we sell single payer? I think single payer has already sold itself. In California, 71% of the voters want single payer. So that's not 71% of Democrats. That's not 71% of Democrats and independents. That's across the state. So that number includes a lot of Republicans as well that want single payer. 61% want single payer nationwide. So how do you explain these numbers and then explain who's in office? It's because people don't realize what it is what it was until after the election. Now they're hearing more about it. Bernie's going around the country. SB 562 is going around California, and people are learning more and more. Oh, this is what single payer is. It's not government medicine. They're going to lower my costs by taking out insurance profits and taking out advertising costs and putting in cost controls and lowering prescription drug coverage. So basically, what I tell people, and this is what people argue about single payer, they're going to say, oh, it's going to cost so much more. So I explained to them, okay, so we got the total cost, right? I'll do my little thing. We got the total cost, right? And then we take off the insurance company profits, and then we take off the prescription drug costs through cost controls, and then we control other costs for procedures. Now we have a smaller number. How can that number be bigger than the original number when you subtracted stuff from it? It's basic math. So then they say, well, How are we going to, you know, hire all these people, you know, to run the program? That's going to cost money. These people already exist. They're already doing those jobs. You just put them into the single payer system instead of into the private system. And now they're doing the same job. They have the same experience through billing and all that. And now they have an actual job with actual benefits working for the government. So now they're actually better off than they were before. So we're not going to send a whole lot of people off on unemployment. We're actually going to hire a lot of people and they're going to have good benefits.
So, what would be a good response if somebody comes to you and asks, well, why don't we have that system now if it's so great?
Because corporations influence our politics and we can't get any bills through the legislature without cutting them out of the picture. The only way we can do things in the current system is get so many people mad and so many people basically protesting in the streets and calling their congressmen, senators, their governors, their state senators and assemblymen and telling them this is what we want. So if 71% of people in California want single payer and then Kamala Harris suddenly turns over and says, oh yeah, I'm for that, you can see it happening already. She was not for single payer before. The only holdouts are really the old guard, Pelosi and Feinstein in California, the only holdouts. Now you're seeing people across the nation in the Democratic Party coming onto the single payer bandwagon at the last minute because the polls shifted. So I
So,
think
do you think that you could influence a fellow senator to kind of jump onto a single payer system or jump on to support that? Or do you think that that actually has to come from their voters?
I think representation wise, it would be best to come from their voters because their voters are the ones that they're supposed to represent. But I don't think it's hard for their voters to get energized to go and do that. So a single payer, once you explain it to people and they understand it, most people actually want it, as we've seen in the polls, as we've seen as Bernie's gone across, you know, the United States and held all these different single payer rallies, and he talks to people that are against single payer, and by the end of the speech, they're for single payer because now they understand it. They understand the cost controls. They understand that they're going to be paying less and covering more people. So we all hear stories about someone with a family member who gets cancer or something and hits what's called a lifetime cap. Basically, say your lifetime cap is $1 million, you're going to expend that in a year to 2 years at most, and then no other private insurance company is going to cover you. So basically, they're sending you off to your death. That doesn't happen under single payer because we all cover each other. So the healthy people cover the sick people, as I'm for sure you've heard the message before. And so that way we can cover everyone for cheaper. So it's like, it's completely obvious that we'd want this plan, that we'd want this to work. We just have to get past the huge amounts of money that the health insurance companies are pouring into this.
So you mentioned earlier that I guess Dianne Feinstein wasn't really very supportive of the single payer option. Is there anything else that distinguishes you from her? And also, yeah, well, I'll just stick with that question for now. Is there anything else that you think that that distinguishes you from her?
So I'm an anti-war candidate. She's very pro-military. She's a war hawk. She actually gave Trump a nice pat on the back when he bombed Syria directly and said she was hoping to see a more comprehensive plan. That's very disturbing to me. I don't think we should be selling weapons to any countries that oppress their neighbors. That includes everyone. So even our allies, if they oppress their neighbors or their own people, we shouldn't be selling them weapons or giving them aid for weapons. So I'm against that, and she's for that. She is ardently against the legalization of recreational marijuana. I am for it. She is a proponent of the drug war, which leads to mass incarceration and private prison. I'm against that. So there's a lot of these issues that come up where she's very conservative, and she's still, you know, living 24 years ago when she got elected, when society has moved forward, when California voted for Prop 64 to legalize recreational marijuana, she was against that bill. So it's like she's going against the people at every turn. And all I'm asking is for us to follow our own party platform, the California Democratic Party platform, legalize marijuana. The death penalty is another thing she's against that the platform, or that she's for, that the platform is against. So the things I mentioned before, universal health care that covers everybody and leaves nobody out is part of the California Democratic Party platform. They don't specify single payer, but single payer is the only system that we can do it affordably. We can't have a private healthcare insurance system and cover everybody at a decent cost. We're basically going to be subsidizing, kind of like what Obamacare did. We're going to be subsidizing insurance companies.
Do you believe that gerrymandering is an issue, especially partisan gerrymandering?
Yes, it is, and there's not easy answers for it. I think the best way to go about it is a very simplistic, like a computer program, where you could have the computer decide where the borders are based on population. In California, we have a committee or a commission that does the lines, but if you actually look at the districts that this commission builds, they're still pretty awkward shaped and strange. So the simple, basically, I mean, I'm speaking in layman's terms here, but the whole issue with zoning districts is the simplest shapes are going to be the most representative and fair of that area. And we still have, we have shapes in California like a smiley face or like a banana or something that weaves through all these different areas. So even with an independent commission, we really don't have a representative district for every area. In other states, obviously, gerrymandering is a huge issue. The Republicans have used this to their advantage and basically gerrymandered around so they control the whole state. So it's literally impossible to win elections in certain areas.
Do you find that gerrymandering specifically affects your district that you want to represent?
No, because my district is statewide, so I wouldn't be worrying about gerrymandering. Yeah, so I would represent the whole state of California. So I kind of get out of that. The only gerrymandering we have is state borders. So, and I think I'm doing pretty good there.
Awesome. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and approach the issue of immigration. How do you feel about the reversal of DACA?
I think it's ridiculous and horrifying. People shouldn't be ripped out of their families and sent back to countries that they don't even know. People have been in this country working hard and paying taxes for 10 to 20 years. And then you're going to send them back home to a country, quote unquote home, to a country they never knew. They have no house there. They have no family there possibly. And they don't know anyone there. They have no connections. So they're basically going to be homeless in their country of origin. So I'm for a in place, basically a path to citizenship in place, which means you don't have to go back to your home country to apply for citizenship here. If you're already here and you've been here for 10 or 20 years, you should just apply for citizenship here and then get that application accepted here because you've been here. You haven't been an issue. Now, when it comes to like criminal offenders, then yes, I think we should deal with them. I think they should be arrested for their crimes and possibly be deported. But if you arrest someone for a crime and immediately deport them, they can come back into the country a week later and you haven't solved the problem. So it's kind of a complex issue when it comes to criminals. But building a wall along the southern border is not going to help anything, especially when we need that money and those resources to fix our roads and bridges. We don't need to be building a stupid wall on the southern border.
So do you think that when people are detained by ICE, that they should be detained but in private prison complexes? How do you feel about,
Go ahead.
Sorry.
I was going to say I'm completely against all private prisons. I think we need to shut them all down. And through legalization of marijuana, I believe that we can get rid of mass incarceration and we'll have no need for private prisons. When it comes to ICE arresting people, why are they arresting people anyway? These people that they're actually arresting and going out there encountering are not criminals. These are just people living their lives. They're getting arrested at work. There's a story out today that people are getting arrested when they go and stay at a hotel because the hotel has turned in the information to ICE. So if we're spending our money to send militant, people in militant uniforms out to arrest kids and their parents and splitting apart families, not only is that a waste of money because they're not criminals and they're doing no harm to anybody. You know how many people in this country are here undocumented? If you're going to try to do that to everyone, now you're just pouring money down the drain. We could be using that money to actually help our citizens, if you want it that way, help our citizens, or help residents of the U.S. to have better lives. But instead, we're throwing all this money down the drain, and it's actually not going to fix the problem. I know, like the whole border wall thing, you can get in an airplane and fly over the wall, or you can do what they do already and tunnel under the wall. They're finding tunnels all the time between Mexico and California, and people, who knows how many people came through that tunnel, how many drugs came through that tunnel. A wall is not going to help anything. So I just don't understand why we're spending all this money and we're trying to spend more to solve a non-issue. If you have an undocumented person committing a crime, you treat them like anyone else. If they commit a crime, you arrest them, they go to court, they go to jail. That's the end of it. So I don't understand why they're making this whole other system. But, well, obviously I understand why they're doing it, but I don't agree with it.
We're kind of at the 30-minute time point now. Is there anything else you want our viewers to know about you?
So I am from Sacramento, California. I grew up in a union household. I am a very strong union supporter. I've worked several jobs. I worked retail. I worked in mental health. I've basically done everything: construction, roofing, concrete. I've done everything. So basically, my experience is not only in legislative work, which I've done for the last 6 years, but I've actually experienced life as, normal people live life, not as people with obscene amounts of wealth live life. So I've seen bills. I know Feinstein probably hasn't seen a bill in quite a while because she probably has people for that. I don't have people for anything. So I've actually lived the life that everyone else has lived, and I believe that I can represent people because of that. I don't believe that people who have obscene amounts of wealth can actually represent the working class. They can talk about it all they want, but they have not experienced that. So I don't think they can actually fulfill that. So it doesn't matter what they say on the campaign trail. I don't believe people that are out there saying those things when they have hundreds of millions of dollars in the bank. Some people that are in office are so rich they can't count their money. So I think we need to end that, and I think ending Citizens United is a good way to do that. So beyond that, we can get to the website and all that stuff later, I guess, at the end of the program. But basically, I just want to let you know, davidforcalifornia.com is where all my information, platform, and donation page is at. But we can talk more about that at the end, I'm sure.
All right, David. Well, this was just going to be the 30 minutes. And so I do appreciate you talking to me. And thank you I was going to ask you about your website to kind of throw it up here. But now, since you already took care of that for me, I appreciate that as well. I'm, again, Amanda Cumming with the Independent Progressive, and we want to keep you guys updated and informed about what's going on in your local politics and federally in politics as well. So thank you, David, so much for speaking to me.
Thank you. And also on the website, you can get a free bumper sticker if you live in California. So head on over and get one of those and put it on your car and help spread the name recognition.
Awesome.